Good morning, stampers and crafters. Welcome to Tina's Crafty Ink Spot. I got a really fun card for you today. We are going to do a seesaw card. Seesaw being, look at these two little penguins. How cute is that? So I'm going to show you today how you can create that mechanism and make little seesaw cards. They're a lot of fun. They're not too difficult. There's a little bit of detail to it. I will include below a tutorial PDF that's going to have all of the measurements for you to create this. I'm also going to include the items I use, the punches and dies, to create the different parts of it. Now, you can use whatever you have on hand to create it. I'm just going to try to use some items that we have in stock that you can use to create it. So this is going to take a little bit, and there'll be parts of this video where I will try to fast forward it, but I don't want you to miss anything. So let's jump in and get started. So to start off, you want your regular card base, and this is an A2 card base, which is 5.5 by 8.5 scored at 4 1/4. I then have our image piece, and this one I did the full size. I'm not going to reduce it, so that would make this 4 1/4 by 5.5. Okay, you're also, and this is regular basic white. You're also going to need, I would recommend using your thick basic white. And sorry, that's basic white. They changed the name. My bad. Use your thick cardstock to create the mechanism. I think it just works better. It's stronger. So we have some thick basic white here. Let's go ahead, and what we want to do is I'm going to move our card base away. Let's create our scene, and then we'll move forward from there. Now, I do the scene prior to doing any of the cuts or anything like that because it'll just be easier. So all I'm going to use for that is I'm going to bring in some blending brushes, maybe some Pacific Point and some Old Olive. For the clouds on my image, I have this stencil that came in, I want to say, April's Paper Pumpkin, but you can use whatever you have to create your clouds or your background. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. And I'll go over the stamp sets I used as we go through this. So let's get a little bit of blue on here, and let's create some clouds. So I'm just going to lightly go over that stencil there. I almost dumped that into my green. I'd be careful. Okay, let's do another. Just doing some random clouds here. Be able to make it nice and colorful. Okay, now for the grass, I'm just going to use some Old Olive. Go along the bottom here. I try to do my darker towards the bottom and then just blend it up just a little bit. You can do whatever backgrounds you want on this. You could use designer paper here, whatever you'd like. Okay, so I got a little bit of grass going on there. Now I'm going to bring in, let me close this blue. I am going to bring in some of the stamp sets we're going to use today. Now the greeting I'm getting from the Party Puffins. I wanted a nice kind of whimsical greeting and from all of us, so we'll be using that. We're also going to be using the characters in Count on Me. The two penguins are right here that are going to be going up and down. Our grass and our other characters. And what did I use this one for? I know I used the little bird right here. I did a little blue bird. So what I did to save time on the video, I'll show you, is I stamped and colored all of those images and then cut them out. And we'll attach those later. So that's where I got the little blue bird. I'll have all the stamp sets I use below and on the tutorial. So I want to grab this little bit of grass right here that's in this one. Let's just stamp some random grass here. You can, stamp on and then do a secondary for a lighter. There we go. Got a little bit of grass. Oh, did I bring it? Okay. Let's clean that off. Now I want to stamp my greetings before I put the card together, because once everything's all the dimensionals are and everything are on there, it'll be a little bit harder to stamp. So let's bring in our Memento Black and our greetings. Let's do happy birthday and from all of us. And we'll bring in, what did I do with my Stamparatus? Whoop, one moment. You know me, I've got to use my Stamparatus. I just always worry that I'll stamp it wrong and ruin it before I even get started. So I know that most of my characters and my device is going to be on the lower 2/3. So let's go ahead and put our happy birthday here. And from all of us. I'm just going to stamp that in the black. Look at that. Came out perfect. We like that. We like when that happens. Clean those off, put them away, because I have so many stamps out that I don't want to mix them up. You could actually use this Party Puffins for this technique too. Put the little puffins and create them flying up and down. That would be cute. Alright, so now we've got our card front ready. And I'm going to set this aside. Alright, now, to start off, we're going to make our mechanism first. And let me move everything out of the way here. And I've got my little written up cheat sheet here, which will be all typed up for you. So we're going to need our trimmer and our thick basic white. So let's create the seesaw part first. Now the seesaw is, I have a, maybe it'll make a little more sense. Where is mine? I have one made up that's not assembled. Here we go. So what we're going to create first is this seesaw mechanism, okay? This is what it looks like behind the scenes, okay? So let's create the mechanism. Now the seesaw is 3/4 inches by 4 inches, and the second piece is 3/4 inches by 2 3/4. So let's do that. So I'm going to go to the 3/4 mark here on my trimmer. There's one. Okay. Now we need one to be 4 inches and one to be 2 3/4. There's our 4 inches. And here is our 2 3/4. Okay. Now, this gets interesting. Let's see if I can do this without fumbling too much. And I've only made a couple of these. But what we want to do, I'm going to get my little mat here, because we'll be doing glue. Now I would suggest when you're making this that you do use your liquid glue or a really good adhesive. You don't want your mechanism coming apart, okay? So we're going to bring in a ruler and a pencil, and you figure this is 4 inches, so all I'm going to do is put a little mark at 2 inches so I know where the center is, okay? And half of 3/4 is going to be what, 3/8. So 1 2 3/8. So there's the center of that, okay? So now I'm going to take and attach that with some glue centered on here. Sorry if I just put my head in there. So we're going to end up with a little T, is what we have here. Oops, and I popped it right off there. So I want to make sure that's pretty much centered. And there we go. Okay, now we need to create the slider slots. So what I did is I found some dies. Now you can use punches, you can cut them out by hand, whatever you need to do. But the dies I found were in the suit and tie set, okay? And out of this set, you need, if I can pick it up, this little stitch die here and the long one, okay? I'm going to set that aside. And what I want to do is I want these to be centered on my mechanism. So what I'll do is I'm going to come in 1/4 inch off the edge here, okay? So I'm going to go about 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, and we know that half of 3/4 is 3/8. So I'm going to mark my 3/8. And that gives us the center of those. So we want to do the same thing here on this part of it. We're going to come in 1/4 inch and our 3/8. And now we've got the centers marked, okay? You just need something for reference. Let's see if you can see those tiny little marks that are going to give you reference, okay? Now, I'm going to see if I can do this with my little my little stamp and cut and emboss machine. It's kind of hard for me to use my hand, but we're going to work through it here. So let's put our first one here. I'm going to take my little die, and we know that we want the end of it to be at the 1/4 inch mark we made and centered. I mean, you just want to get it as close as you can, okay? Try to square it up there. You can use a little sticky note. Try to hold it in place. And let's run that through. I love this little tiny machine. And see, there we have our slot. So we're going to do all 3 slots. I don't think that moved. It might have moved a hair, but we'll be okay. There's our second slot. And let's do our third one. If you have a little tiny punch, or if you want to hand cut these, you can do that too. You kind of just want something big enough that you'll be able to use your mini dimensionals to create the slider part, okay? Okay, we have our mechanism. Look at that. Set those aside. Okay, so there's our first part. And now, this one, okay, this one, I'm going to cut this because this is going to work as our sleeves. Does that make sense? So let me cut a little piece off this. What do I do with my trimmer here? Let me grab my trimmer, which seems to have evaded me here. Here we go. Okay. I'm just going to cut a piece large enough to, or small enough to fit through my machine there. Oops, a little short. Okay, we kind of want the full length of this, and it'll make sense when, let me make sure I have a piece big enough here. Okay, so here we go. Got it. So we're going to take this. Run it through our machine. Now these are going to work. This is going to work as your slide guides. Okay, so that you're pulled. All right. So how long is this? Oops! I just dropped something. Not sure what it was. Okay, this is about 5 3/4 or so, but the guides only need to be what did I say they were for length? Let me find my sheet here. My cheat sheet. Okay. Well, I might have missed one here, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to fold it in half. We have our two pieces. And I'm going to bring in my scorer again. And I'm going to score these at, and you'll have all the measurements. I'll have them there for you. The first score is going to be at 7/8, okay? Which is right past a half. Or just under 1 is actually 7/8. So let's score at 7/8. Then score it at 1 inch. And then we're going to score at 1 7/8 and at 2 inches. And we're going to do the second one the same. So we're going to do 7/8. One inch. One 7/8 and 2 inches. Now we're going to take these and we're going to create the sleeves. See there? That's what we're creating right there, the little sleeves. So I'm just going to take a little bit of glue. And then, since I have little chubby fingers, I just use my bone folder to kind of get in there and squeeze it together. Oops, and make sure that it's straight. Okay, and let's do our second one. Make sure it's together well. Missed a little glue there for me. For some reason I didn't get this one right. You're kind of learning with me. Like I said, I've only made 2 of these. I did it yesterday and was trying to find all the different ways and things to create the items we needed. And there we go. We got our 2 sleeves. We got our mechanism done. Now we need our pull tab. Okay, let me move these aside. Now we're still going to need to cut slits in our card, but I'll show you that and how I figured out that. Put these dies away. Okay, so now we need our pull tab, and our pull tab is 3/4 inches by 4 3/4. Okay, let's bring our cutter back in. So we'll go to 3/4. And go to 4 3/4. And then just to make a little decorative end on it, I brought in, and I forgot to write down the name of it, but I will have that. I'm going to make a cute end on this with my punch. You know what? Let's use this decorative one here. So you just slide it in there. And I always look at mine from the back to make sure it's lined up. And there we have our pull tab. It's got our pull tab, our mechanism, and our sleeves. Now, we're going to take our card front and create the slits that the mechanism runs on. Okay? Now, to do that, I was trying to find with a die or a punch that would work, and what I found was in our playful alphabet. You have these two little, I'm not even sure what they are. They might be eyes. No, there's an eye. Whatever they are, let's take those two out. Okay. Now, I want to take my mechanism, and I assume my mechanism is going to go about, I want to have room for the pull top here, okay? And I'm just using this as the front. So I'm kind of going to make sure it's centered there. Pretty sure this is how I did this. Let me make sure. Like I said, you're just learning with me here. Alright, so let's flip it over because I don't want to mark on my... So my pull tab is going to go about there. So we're going to take our pencil and we're going to mark about toward the edge. Okay, probably come in maybe 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and then we only need our slots. We need them to be 3 inches apart and 1.5 inches long. Okay, so let's make sure we're 3 inches apart here. Okay, remove the marks I don't need. And I want to make sure they're going to fit in there. Yep, so 3 inches apart, and we're going to come up. So if we came up 1 inch from the bottom, let's do that. So let's mark 1 inch. I'm just going to mark it a couple times here so I can make a straight line across there. And now let's make our line so it'll give us a guide. There we go. We've got our 1 inch and we've got our mark where our slits are going to go. Okay? So now we're going to bring in, oops, I had glue on there. Darn it. That's alright. I got a glue eraser. We'll fix it. As a matter of fact, let's grab it. We don't ruin the front of this. And get the glue off here. If you don't have one of these, they're like a must. It's like a staple item. It removes little pieces of glue and things. Okay, there we go. Now this isn't going to fit in here to run it through using the little machine. But what you're going to do, and I'm going to go do it now, is you're going to take your little pieces that are out of the alphabet set, and you're going to line them up at the bottom where your line is and centered on the mark we made at 3 inches apart. Okay? And what you can do is take a little sticky note. So let's bring in Sticky Kitty. and we're going to stick it down here. I only need a little piece here. I'm going to stick it down, and you're going to cut it twice, okay? So cut this one, and then move it up and cut it again, and that'll be more than enough of the slits you need. So let's put it there. And I will fast forward through this part. I'm going to go run this through my machine. So see there, I cut them the first time, and then I lined them up again to cut them a second time, okay? And that's how you get your slits. You could probably hand cut these if you wanted to. I just thought these seemed to work the easiest. Or if you have a small punch or something there. So now we have our two slits, okay? So now we're going to take our mechanism. I'm going to lay it on here. Let me get rid of some of these glue spots I seem to have got. I laid it on my little sticky note, and things are kind of sticking here. And what you can do if you're worried about having glue where you don't want it, bring in your embossing powder, embossing buddy or your embossing powder, and kind of run it in your slits and on any of your devices that you think might have a little bit of glue. Okay, so now we're going to take this and I'm going to center it between our slots, and I'm going to bring in my little punch pad here. We've got it centered, okay? See if I can move in just a little bit for you. Maybe it'll be easier. Okay, so you see we have all of our slots all lined up here, okay? So I'm going to kind of center that in our slots. And I'm going to take my Take Your Pick tool, and I'm going to punch a hole right in the middle, okay? Through both of them, okay? Just going to go right through there. Okay, so we have that. Now you're going to take your mini dimensionals, and you need a 1/2 inch circle punch. Okay, this is just a 1/2 inch. You can use a die or whatever you have. And what I need is 10 little circles. Okay, so let's cut out 10 little circles here. Oops, and we got a flyer. Those really fly. Maybe if I do them this way. Oh, that one didn't cut. That's a really old little punch I have. There's 5. Okay, now we have our 10 little circles. Okay, one of them I didn't get a full circle, so I'm going to redo that. Okay, so we've got our little circles. And what you want to do is we're going to create the mechanism now, the slider mechanism. So you're going to take these little circles and you're going to fold them in half. You're going to fold a couple of them in half. So what I do is I take my bone folder and my mat, and I just go right in the middle and kind of crease it a little bit, and that makes it easier to just fold them in half. So you end up with these little half circles. So we need 4 of them done that way. You could probably try to score them in your scoring board, but I think that would be a little difficult. If you're really good at folding them in half, you could do that. Okay, so we've got our 4 little half circles, and you're going to take and put 2 of them, oops, I think this is probably the hardest part of the whole darn thing, is getting these little circles in here. So you're going to put one facing one way, see, I get one in and the other one comes out. Okay, one more try here. Okay, now you're going to take your 2 little circles, you're going to butt them up to each other in the center so that the 2 creases are in the center. Let me see if I can zoom in and show that. See how they are butted up in the center there? Okay, that's what you want. Then you're going to take another circle, you're going to put some glue on it, and be careful, you don't want too much to where it spews out, and you're going to lay it right over that crease, okay? And then you're going to flip it over and do the same thing. Lay another circle right over it. And then check your device. Oops, my circle didn't stay down. Hold on. Make sure that stays glued. And then you want to check it and make sure it slides up and down easily. Okay? If you think you have glue or anything that might get in the way, again, hit it with your powder. I usually just do this just in case. You don't want to get all the way done and then your mechanism doesn't slide. So we're going to do that on the other side. They're so small, it's take my other one. Bottom up in the center. And this is the reason I'm using glue, is you definitely don't want these to come apart. You could probably try a glue dot, but this way I know that it's... And then make sure your mechanism slides. Add your powder if you're not sure. Bit of glue here I'm going to get off. Alright, now we've we've got our two little slider mechanisms. Make sure they move well, easily. Okay. Now we're going to flip it over. I'm going to take our mechanism, and I usually put one to the top and one to the bottom. Kind of doesn't really matter. Remember we did the little hole? Well, now you want to bring in your, I'm so glad brads came back. These are the new brads that are out in the new catalog. I'm just going to take a white one here, and I'm going to go from the front, put it through our hole, also make sure it comes through our mechanism here. Okay, and then fold it down. Now you don't want it super tight because you want this to be able to spin. So what you can do is just take a piece of your cardstock, lay it under where you're flattening out your brad, and it just kind of gives it a little bit of a gap. And me personally, I take my snips when I find them, as soon as I find them. Okay, they're right here, everybody. Where are they? I know we're looking at them. Oh, there they are. And I'm just going to trim this off just a little bit. Your snips will cut it right off. And then make sure it's down on there. Okay? So now, see? Our little mechanism spins. Okay? Now we need to connect it to our slides. So we're going to take where it's over those little dots. We're going to take a mini glue dot and put it through the slit to the little circle, and make sure that it's not gluing them together. It's just in there. Take off your top and add another circle. Okay. Do the same thing on the other side. Through your slot onto the round dot. And a little circle to secure it. So now, see, you have your mechanism. Isn't that neat? Okay, we're almost done now. So now I want to add my pull tab. The other one I did the pull tab on the left. I think I want it on the right. I guess it really doesn't matter, but I'm right-handed. So I'm going to take this I'm going to go to the farthest side from where my pull tab is going to stick out. So I'm going to adjust my so you see the slot there and our pull tab, and I'll take my pencil and I'm lightly going to draw a line right there, and that's going to tell me where to put my guides. Okay, so we'll put a little bit of glue on, line up our first guide. Oh, stuck to me, not the card. And I'm just lining them up on that little line we made. You can probably just do one of these if you wanted. I did two because I just wanted to make sure it was sturdy. We want to make sure our template slides okay. So I need to move that one over just a little bit. So we want to make sure we have room for our mechanism, okay? I'm going to use my little powder. Make sure everything's moving well and not glued down. Now we're going to slide our pull tab in through the slots and under your mechanism here. Again, I'm going to go all the way to the edge there. We'll take a mini glue dot, put it through our little slot here, and we need another circle. And we have a runner. Let's cut one more little circle out. Apparently one of them ran off. That one ran off right away off to the floor. And we got it. Alright. And we're just going to stick our little dot on there. And look at this. There's your mechanism. Look at that. Isn't that fun? Okay. So now we'll put our little items on here. And I'm going to at least get my penguins on before I attach it to the card base, because I want to make sure everything moves smoothly. Got a little more glue here. So I'm just going to take my first little penguin, and just so it moves freely, we're going to use a dimensional right on our dot here. A dimensional on this little dot. And attach our penguins. Now you could always make yourself a makeshift little teeter-totter down here and make it look like they're playing on a seesaw teeter-totter. And looky there, we have our two little penguins. Doink, 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 doink. Aren't they cute? That's fun. Okay, now to attach it to the card base. What I used, you can use regular dimensionals, is I took my adhesive sheets. Move out here a little bit for you. So I took my adhesive sheets and I cut pieces the sizes I needed. Okay? Because you don't want anything to be in the way of your mechanisms. Okay? So I'm going to cut one that goes all the way across here. And I'm probably going to double it up so that we have plenty of depth. Because see how we're just really close right here? So I'm just going to take a second strip and off. And I'm going to double it up here. Okay, so let's create the other ones. We want to make sure we put where it's not going to be in the way. You could probably use your regular adhesive strips also, but I wanted something a little bit wider. Okay. Keep moving your little mechanism. Make sure you don't get anything in the way. Okay, now we need one more little piece at the bottom, and we want to move our mechanism all the way over to make sure we don't put it where it's going to be in the way. Oops, that's a little bit close right there, so I'm just going to trim it. There we go. Look at that. So now we got it ready to go on to our card base. Everything's moving fine. We're good to go. If you want, well, I don't think you need it, but let's move forward. Now when I get ready to put mine on the card base, and I know it's going to be something that's got to kind of go down right the first time, I peel off my protective pieces, and then I add glue, because if you put a little bit of a real thin layer of glue on here, you can actually move it a little bit as you lay it down. So it gives you a little bit of wiggle room to move it when you first lay it down. So let's lay it onto our card base. Make sure we're all squared up here. Now we want to make sure our little guys still move. We're all good. I just put a finger glue on my card. Okay, let's add our little characters now. Just for the clouds, I have these little clouds. I got these from, I love these little stitch clouds. They're adorable. I got them from the Give It a Whirl, and they've got these cute little stitch clouds here. So I want to attach those with a dimensional. Maybe a little dimensional here. Okay, we want to make sure they're not in the way of our little guys. So I'm going to put this first one about right there, and then just trim it off. Again, another little thing you really don't have to do. I just did it for a little bit of dimension and aesthetics here. And let's put our other cloud about right there. Trim off our end. Now we have our little tiny bluebird that I stamped. I'm just going to glue him cloud here. It's going to glue them right on the cloud. Okay. Let's add our koala bears, which we can glue straight down. Let's put these guys about right about there. Make sure they're, and with them glued down, they're not going to be in the way of our little penguin sliding up and down. Now we've got our kangaroo, and I want him to be popped up a little. Let's put, I'm going to do it so that he kind of covers this little brad right here. So I'll just make his flower cover the brad. We got our little cake. Just glue that straight down. And last but not least, our adorable little fox, who I'm going to pop up. Oops, I just dropped my dimensionals on the floor. And we have a runner. They went, of course, all the way under the desk. Okay, and then we're going to put our little fox on. And now, you see how you have these little white marks under your animals where I fussy cut? I just take a light green Stampin' Blend and kind of color those little white edges a little. Just kind of makes them not stick out as much. It's not something you have to do, it's just something I do. Kind of that whole attention to detail thing. And looky here, you can write pull on there if you want, but look, there you go. You have your two fun little penguins, and that's it. That is your Seesaw card. I hope you liked today's tutorial, and I will have a detailed PDF below that you can print. I'll probably try to do some in-process photos. I'm not sure. I probably should have done it here. But I'll have all the measurements, the dies I used, and everything you need to be able to create your little Seesaw device. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and you have a happy stampin' day. Bye-bye now.